It was supposed to be just another quiet drive home. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting a soft orange hue across the highway, and the world seemed almost still. But in a flash, peace turned into panic. Red and blue lights danced in the rearview mirror. A siren shattered the silence. The black SUV slowed and pulled over, its driver careful, precise, calm, but not without concern. Inside the vehicle sat Amara Johnson, not just any motorist, but the director of a major FBI branch. What should have been a routine stop quickly unraveled into something far darker. A police officer approached. His hand hovered too close to his weapon. His voice carried no courtesy. And in the seconds that followed, Amara found herself staring down the barrel of a loaded gun. Not because she posed a threat, but because of who she was, and who he assumed she wasn't. Thank you for being here. If this story speaks to something in you, if you believe these moments deserve to be seen and remembered, I invite you to click like, subscribe, and join us again. Because tomorrow and every day after, we'll share another story that truly matters. Amara Johnson had faced her share of storms. As the director of one of the nation's largest FBI branches, she had spent decades walking a tightrope, balancing justice with politics, pressure with principle. Her name carried weight, but she never let it rest heavy on her shoulders. She earned her authority not through titles, but through resolve, discipline, and a deep understanding of what it meant to serve. That evening, the streets were near empty. The city had exhaled its last breath of rush hour, and the road stretched ahead like a ribbon of silence. Amara's black SUV hummed quietly along the asphalt, its headlights casting long shadows through the trees. She was headed home, finally. A warm dinner and a half-read book waited for her, the kind of night she rarely got to enjoy. Peaceful, simple, earned. But Amara knew better than to trust quiet moments. As a black woman in law enforcement, she'd learned that stillness often came before a storm. She always drove with her documents within reach, her phone mounted and ready to record, her hands steady on the wheel. Not out of paranoia, but out of wisdom, the kind that comes from living with eyes wide open. She had spent her career training others how to de-escalate, how to handle danger with poise, yet nothing in her years of experience could fully prepare her for what would unfold that night. Because sometimes it doesn't matter who you are, it matters who they think you are. The silence shattered. Flashing lights lit up the inside of Amara's SUV like a nightclub no one asked to enter. A sharp siren pierced the air, and she instinctively looked into the rearview mirror. A patrol car, red and blue lights spinning, no other cars in sight, no intersections missed, no speeding, no broken taillight, just her and him. Amara eased her foot off the gas, signaled, and pulled to the side of the road. The SUV came to a slow stop under a canopy of trees, their leaves rustling like whispers in the wind. She turned on the interior lights, a habit she had formed long ago. Visibility, she learned, sometimes meant safety. Her hands stayed in plain view, resting lightly on the steering wheel. Calm, controlled, professional. From the mirror, she saw him step out. A tall white officer, mid-30s, square-jawed and stiff-backed. His name, she'd soon learn, was Daniel Carter. He approached with a hard, rehearsed swagger, one hand near his belt, the other swinging with purpose. Suspicion lived in his eyes before a single word left his mouth. He knocked on the window, not a tap, but a knock that demanded authority. Amara rolled it down, just halfway. "Good evening, officer," she said evenly. "Is there a problem?" He didn't answer her question. "License and registration." She raised an eyebrow. "Can I ask why I was stopped?" "You look suspicious," he said flatly. Suspicious. That word hung in the air like smoke from a fire no one wanted to admit had started. Amara didn't flinch, but she felt her pulse rise. She knew this script, and she didn't like where it was going. But she also knew she wouldn't be bullied. Not tonight, not ever. Amara held his gaze, her hands unmoving, her voice calm. "Suspicious is not a traffic violation, officer." Her tone wasn't combative. It was measured, informed, the voice of someone who knew the law inside and out. But Daniel Carter wasn't looking for conversation. He was looking for control. His jaw tightened. I'm not here to debate with you, he snapped. Hand me your license and registration. Now. Amara reached for the documents in her glove compartment, slowly, deliberately, narrating her movements like she'd done in training exercises 100 times before. She handed them over, her fingers steady. Here you go. Everything's in order. He took them but didn't look. Instead, he flashed a beam from his flashlight into her eyes. Bright, invasive, unnecessary. Are you carrying any drugs, weapons? He asked, peering into the car like a hunter looking for prey. No, Amara answered evenly. And unless you have probable cause, I'd appreciate if you stopped trying to imply otherwise. The words triggered something. Daniel's expression darkened. He leaned in closer. Don't get smart with me. People like you should know back. People like you. The phrase hit with the weight of centuries. Amara sat still, not blinking. Officer, I know my rights, and I know I haven't violated any law. That was when it shifted. Daniel's hand slammed down on the car door, hard enough to make her flinch. You think wearing a suit makes you special? You think your calm little voice is going to scare me? This is my stop, my road, my call. His other hand hovered near his holster now, fingers twitching. Amara's instinct screamed for caution. She knew how quickly a wrong word, or no words at all, could turn a tense moment into tragedy. I'm not resisting, she said softly. I'm just asking you to follow the law. Get out of the car, he barked. I don't feel safe doing that. I said get out. He was shaking now, voice rising, and Amara, sitting behind the wheel with nothing but her integrity and a mounted phone recording every second, realized something chilling. This wasn't about the law anymore. This was about ego, power, and fear, all pointed directly at her. Amara's fingers stayed wrapped around the steering wheel, her eyes never leaving the man outside her window. His hand was now fully resting on the grip of his gun. She could see the tremble in his wrist, not from fear but fury. He was unraveling, and she knew it. One wrong movement could tip him over the edge. Officer, she said, her voice low but resolute, I am recording this entire interaction. Your conduct, your threats, everything is being documented. If you take one more step toward me with that weapon, I will treat it as a direct violation of my civil rights. Daniel didn't flinch. You don't get to decide how this goes. I'm not deciding, she replied. I'm calling your superior. Her hand moved, slowly, visibly, to the phone on her dash. She pressed a contact, held the phone to her ear. Sheriff Grant, she said, loud enough for Daniel to hear. This is Director Amara Johnson. I've been pulled over and threatened with a firearm. I need you on site. Immediately. Daniel blinked. His posture stiffened. Director? He repeated, but it was too late. The wheels were already in motion. Minutes passed like hours. The silence outside was thick, punctuated only by the occasional car whizzing by. And then came the sound that would shift the entire night. Another siren. This one different, slower, commanding. Blue lights appeared down the road. A second cruiser pulled up. The door opened. Out stepped Sheriff Walter Grant, broad-shouldered, gray-haired, and not someone who liked surprises. Sheriff Grant didn't waste time. The moment his boots hit the pavement, he took one look at the scene. Amara's calm presence behind the wheel, Daniel's agitated stance, and the drawn tension you could almost taste in the air. He walked straight toward the patrol car, his face like stone. Carter, he barked, what the hell is going on here? Daniel straightened, caught off guard. Sir, she wouldn't comply. I gave her multiple commands to exit the vehicle. She refused. I feared for my safety. Grant didn't respond immediately. Instead, he turned to look inside the SUV. His eyes met Amara's. Recognition washed over him like cold water. The sternness on his face gave way to something else. Shock, then regret. You're Amara Johnson, he said quietly. She nodded. Director of the FBI, yes. And this officer just pointed a gun at me for asking why I was pulled over. Grant's jaw clenched. He turned slowly back to Daniel, who was now visibly pale. You pulled a gun on her? He asked. Daniel stumbled over his words. She challenged my authority, sir. Grant's voice dropped. That's your justification? You're on camera. Every word, every threat, recorded. Give me your weapon, now. With trembling hands, Daniel unholstered his gun and handed it over. Grant took it without a word and tucked it into his own belt. Then he turned to Amara again. "Ma'am, I assure you, this will be handled personally." And in that moment, power shifted, not with violence, but with truth. The night didn't end there, but the confrontation did. Amara stepped out on. By morning, the incident had already reached the desks of internal affairs and the media. Amara wasn't interested in revenge. She wanted accountability. She submitted the full recording, every second of it. Her statement was clear. "This isn't just about me. It's about how many others don't get to walk away." Grant moved quickly. An internal investigation was launched, and Daniel Carter was placed on immediate administrative leave. But for Amara, the matter wasn't over. She knew how the system worked, how it sometimes buried these moments beneath bureaucracy. So she made it public. Standing at a podium 2 days later, she looked into the eyes of reporters and citizens alike. "This is not the first time an officer abused his badge," she said, "but it should be one of the last. I intend to make sure of that." And with those words, the storm she'd endured became a call for change. 2 months later, the courtroom was packed. Journalists lined the back wall. Community leaders filled the benches. Outside, crowds gathered with signs, not just in support of Amara Johnson, but in demand of a system that protected all citizens, not just those with titles. Daniel Carter sat stiffly at the defense table. No longer in uniform, no longer in control. His lawyer tried to paint the incident as a misunderstanding, a stress response under uncertain conditions. But the video, clear, steady, undeniable, told another story. It showed aggression without provocation, bias without evidence, and a weapon drawn on a woman who never raised her voice. Amara took the stand. She didn't deliver a dramatic speech. She didn't need to. With calm precision, she described what happened, step by step. "I didn't resist," she said. "I asked questions. And for that, a gun was pointed. It wasn't who I am. I might not be here to testify." The jury didn't take long. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty of abuse of power, racial discrimination, and endangering a civilian's life. Daniel Carter was sentenced to 4 years in prison. There was no celebration, no cheers, just a long, quiet exhale from those who had been holding their breath for far too long. Justice, for once, had stood its ground. Amara stood outside the courthouse as cameras flashed and questions flew. But her message was simple. "This was never just about me," she said. "It's about every person who doesn't get to record the moment, who doesn't walk away, who doesn't get justice." In the months that followed, she worked with lawmakers, civil rights groups, and law enforcement leaders to push for real reform. Mandatory body cams, implicit bias training, and new protocols for stops and detentions. Her voice carried the weight of experience and the clarity of someone who had looked injustice in the eye and refused to blink. Daniel Carter was gone from the force, but the fight wasn't over. It never really is. But that night on the side of the road reminded us all, accountability matters. Thank you for being here. If this story meant something to you, click like, subscribe, and join us again tomorrow for another story that matters.